and welcome to the River Shaman Ramblings podcast, where I will ramble like a crazy lady at a bus stop about a variety of topics. And today you are joining me for the conclusion of the saga of the ham sandwich. For I have gone through a travesty of nightmare from becoming a fairy bride to getting free of being a fairy bride, which cast me directly into the arms of the wonderful goddess Mengloth. And then what I haven't told you is what happened beyond. But from there, the story gets really, really convoluted. And I have chosen not to go into it. I got to the important bit. Well, the bit that started this. It's like the Fairy Bride part was like book 1 of the series, and then the part where I go to Mengloth for help is like the beginning of book 2 of the series. A lot of book 2 is a lot of really overheated craziness that I'm just, now that I'm past it, I'm stepping back and I'm going, whoa. I will give you the nutshell though, because if you have managed to stay with the saga of the ham sandwich this long, then you deserve to at least know how things turned out. I want to start, though, by telling you about Rumpelstiltskin. How many of you don't know the story of Rumpelstiltskin? A young girl, her father's either a miller or a poor farmer or insert poor serfdom person here, boasts a bit too much about his daughter's fantastical weaving, boasts that she can weave gold out of straw. The king hears this. The king is a greedy prick, says, bring me the daughter. I want gold. I don't care about the state of the economy and what you making that much gold will do to the value of the gold. Make me some gold. She's locked in a tower. She's bawling her eyes out because her dad's an idiot. The king's an idiot. Nobody listens to the woman. She probably was throwing her hands up going, but your honor is straw and gold is metal. And in comes this little dude who says, I will do it for you. And then the second night, same story. I will do it for you, says the little man. Okay. The third night he says, I will do this for you the third time, but you must make me a promise that you'll give me whatever I ask for. Okay, she's desperate. She presents the gold. The king's like, whoa, baby, you can make gold out of nothing. Let's get married and make gold babies. And she gets married. She becomes queen. She gives birth to the firstborn. She's got her newborn baby. She's all as happy and good. And along comes the little guy. Give me your baby. And she's like, no. He's like, you promised. No. He says, all right, I tell you what. Guess my name. And we'll consider it well and done. So there's this big rigmarole with that, and finally it comes out that his name's Rumpelstiltskin. The queen discovers it. She says Rumpelstiltskin. He goes, no, staple, somebody knows my weird, funny name. And he goes away. The point is that upon naming the danger and naming the entity, the spell was dispersed and the queen is left alone. How does this have anything to do with what happened to me with the saga of the ham sandwich? Well, let's step backwards to the Mengloth part. Happened in the last episode. If you don't know what's going on, I highly recommend that you start with episode 1. I believe on Substack I have named it To the Garden. Let me first go to my usual disclaimers. This story is born from a world walking adventure. I had accidentally started world walking. I had, through world walking, ended up, there's no better way to say it, kidnapped by a fairy after a fashion. Had to deal with that for a while. When I finally got free, the damage done to me by the fairy, because we think of fairies as these loving things, thank you Disney and other media, but they're not. If you go to the Celtic lore, I now know after the fact, they're not. What happened to me is actually in the lore. I wish I had known this in advance. After that, it conveniently spurred me to go to the goddess Mengloth for help. And the truth is, if I had not done that, I probably would never have gotten out of the mess alive. From Mengloth, who did a ritual that I am given to understand was a sort of initiation ritual, I have, from that moment, started seeking someone who would validate the experience as per my people's tradition, and I learned was also per ancient Germanic tradition, you would find an elder who was experienced in the supernatural, or a skald, or a scyther woman, and you would tell what had happened, and the story would be validated. It would go into the oral history. The knowledgeable about all of the myths person would share their insight. You could take it or leave it, and there would have been closure, and your spiritual thing would have been sealed so that you can continue to walk, instead of putting me in a stalemate as I faced gatekeeping and people who claimed to believe in the supernatural until they were faced with the supernatural, and other such fraudulent activities of idiots. Well, I'm sorry, idiots is the only way I can call it. Just people, I understand that people like to put on airs to make themselves sound special. When I was experiencing this, I was experiencing the shamanic death cycle, and my dad had always taught me that when you are going through this, you do not keep it to yourself. You find an elder. And the reason why I now know, now that I'm on the other side, is to keep you from actually dying. They're not there to tell you, you have to do this next step. They're not there to tell you what your path is going to be. They're there to be a buoy in a storm, a listening ear, and to say, hey, I know that tradition. I know what that noose around your neck was about, because Odin had put a noose around my neck. Because especially when you're stepping into a foreign culture, you need someone who knows. Now that I'm on the other side, I have sworn that if I come across someone, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to help everyone who ended up in my position. There's just no way. That is the biggest reason why I started the podcast, was to share this information so that other people will know that they're not alone, that this is part of the cycle. Do your best to hang in there and stay strong, that if you keep pushing, you will eventually push through. So that being said, after a Mingloth's initiation ritual, which I'm really not sure what she was initiating me into still today, a lot of things happened after that. I got what they call divine nostalgia. I really wanted to go back to the fairyland, to the garden. It was really eating me alive. I wanted to rejoin myself. And this is another documented symptom of people who have been touched by fairyland. So I started going and meeting up with all of these entities and gods, looking for some god who had the power to send me back home. Through that, I was greeted by a great many amount of entities and given a lot of gifts. I will read you the gifts because they are amusing to me. I had to go get my notebook to find the list. Flipping. Well, first there was the really weird red long drink that Mingloth gave me that I have already covered, and the new wings. Then I tried Hecate, who fed me green goop out of her cauldron and gave me a weird little nut shell necklace thing and would not answer my questions. So then I tried Mimir, who gave me this really weird red and white lumicus, like if you... The objects would appear like one thing 1 minute and something another minute, like almost like a Warsaw test. So it was this red and white lumicus. It was a loom, yet it was an abacus. Okay, fine. While this was happening, Loki starts chasing me around. And that was my fault. I did that to myself. I had went to Frigg trying to get her to at least tell me that somebody, if it wasn't possible, does somebody please just fess it up, because they wouldn't even tell me it was possible or not. And so then I threatened to go get Loki. Not knowing the pantheons, not knowing how things worked, I thought I was being so sly. And that just got me in trouble. So then me and Loki traded a goblet, and then there was a big affair with that, so that he and I ended up married. And when I say that, people get really upset and mad, but no, married. And by married, I mean he actually has said that I was his wife. Married. I'm going to pause a minute and scratch the record and go into that for a minute. First off, I still blush at it. I am over 50, and it makes me blush like I'm a 15-year-old new bride. I could really have used someone telling me what was going on. It probably would not have happened. I was so furious, and he and I had some big fights. But the reason why I'm backing up and looking at this part and paying special attention to this marriage to Loki is, first off, I want to stress that, yes, I am married to an entity that has presented themselves as Loki. They have very clearly called me their wife. They have been wonderful, wonderful protectors. They have even protected my human husband from dying in a plane crash. But I have this reservation on saying it is the Loki. Of course, he's the Loki to me. He is my Loki. But what I've come to realize in this mess is that things aren't always cut and dried. So I got married to Loki. Take that how you will. But please, for the love of God, don't be all jealous and pissy like some people have gotten. Oh, God, some of the people. I was like, oh, my God, how dare you? As if Loki doesn't have a billion god spouses or something. He has probably the biggest harem on the planet. Or they get mad as if I'm claiming heirs, and I'm not. It really did happen, and we really did argue about it, and he really did take some drastic measures to put me in control, which caused a big mess, I might add. But it's important that I acknowledge this. I don't feel comfortable keeping it a secret. I just don't feel comfortable also going, yeah, I'm married, you're not. There's a lot of people out there claiming to be married to Loki. My alignment with Loki was interesting. The event had some very interesting magical actions to it that are the biggest reason why I wish to talk about and share it, because I wish to teach the charm so that the charm is remembered so that other people know how to do it. But this is not the time. Loki and I traded a pewter goblet. I went to go see Odin. He invited me, though. His was different. He invited me. I also went to see Bridget, who put some balm in my eyes to fix my eyesight a little bit better so I could see in the astral better. And Odin gave me a torch flame that's also a drop spindle. And then me and Loki did a dance on Odin's floor. Then I was having a little trouble doing some stuff, so I went to go see Grandfather Fire, who gave me a gray feather. I haven't figured that part out. And then I was having some serious trouble because what I didn't know was that through this, parasites had come and they had hijacked part of my shamanic awakening journey. This is something that people only mention and they gloss over, and then they kind of put their fingers in their ears and go la 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 la, and they will not be there for the poor awakening shaman that is being chewed upon. Some shamans don't make it and don't survive, and I have learned why. Not just because of the parasites, but because of the apathy around them, where, at least in my family and in some of the records, there is a memory that you would just work to not let that happen. So I was really, really chewed upon by parasites that put on faces of some of the entities that I was already in contact with, like Tyr and Frigg and Freya, were using my activities as ways to feed, so that through this course of what had become a nightmare, a living nightmare, my vision and my energy got weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. At one point, Loki came and he gave me a lantern. This was to help me see and brighten my way, I think. But then the parasites got me upset and I gave him the lantern back like an idiot. And then Hecate met me in a cemetery and gave me a salty drink. I could taste it in my mouth. And for you perverts, no, I mean salty like blood. Then recently I had approached Thor and I gave him a song of his point of view about the invasion of Harold in Iceland. And he gave me not the Mjolnir, but a hammer spear thing. I'm guessing of, you did a good job, kid. Here, have a trinket. These are the things that I have been given. Do I understand what half of them mean? No. Will I probably ever find out? Probably not. I would need somebody who knows what they're talking about to actually talk to me, and people are so busy being dumb. I swear, if I ever get to the point that I know enough, I will do my very best not to treat others the way I have been treated. It is so wrong, the way I have been treated and how I almost didn't survive. And poor Loki had been beside himself doing everything he could to keep me from going all the way down. It's a miracle the guy still got his astral hair, to be quite honest. That's what I want to go to, though, is how this journey finally ended. So I'm being chewed upon by the parasites. And then through the mess of it, they did a thing to me where I would start to babble, and I couldn't shut up everywhere I went. I got to where I went to a convention and I just stayed in my bedroom because I couldn't shut up. And I met there some people who the leader boasted that he would meet people who were awakening and then they would commit suicide and he would be given their crowns of power. And then suddenly I'm under attack. By that Saturday night, I was in my car trying to cut myself loose from Loki. Because one thing that began to happen frequently was people just did not want me and Loki working together. I was being driven to separate myself from Loki, and he's putting his hands on. It's like a little knot thing I've got, and it's where we're tied together. And he was holding my hands to keep me from releasing him, because it's not what I guess Odin wants or something. I really don't know the cosmic plan here. I could just be on my toy for now, and he'll go away eventually next week. I can't say. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say I'm special or nothing. It's just something that's happening for the moment. But I can say that the attacks from the covens on top of the parasites chewing me alive became especially targeted. There was one Saturday I was in a kiddie pool talking to Tear in the Sky while I felt them attack me. One of them liked to call me hideous, which is a trigger word for me. And then I would hear them go, "Hey, now that's going too far." And then they would argue back and forth, and I would push back. And finally, through all of this, because I knew it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't a mental illness. Now, when you're mentally ill, you can tell yourself it's not a mental illness. But I've been around the supernatural and magic enough to know. And I could tell it was external. It was also not random. It was literally on clockwork. I knew that when they got up on the weekend at 9 a.m, they would begin, and on the weekdays, they would begin when he got home from work, except on Wednesdays. So I'm thinking there was something going on Wednesdays that he couldn't do it. The second coven attacked me, and I ended up having to fight them myself, danced myself into a pure shaman, outright clear vision frenzy, which I'd like to be able to do that again, but that took a very long time to get that far so that I could sew his mouth shut and stop his attacks. He came at me with a freaking axe. I still can't get over that. There was someone I had approached in the very beginning of this shamanic awakening when Freya had first appeared to me. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, again, I highly recommend that you go back to the very beginning. I called him up at his job, crying my eyes out. And I had known him since before he found the ancestral faith. So he and I had a history together, but when he finally heard me, he agreed that he and his little group would do something, and they did. They busted off my shields that my friends had taught me to do, because I didn't know how to shield until this time. But that also busted off what the covens had on me, and it gave me space to think. So that within 24 hours, between everything that was going on with me, between being love-bombed by a particular spirit who is now well-behaved and some other stuff, I called him up and I said, "Do you know what the alien love bite is?" That was a Rumpelstiltskin moment. I spoke what I realized was going on out loud, and I literally felt all of the parasites disperse. I felt myself fall out of the love bomb spell in 30 seconds flat. It was like everything cleared, and I was suddenly myself again. I no longer was feeling the urge to babble, and I was balanced again and myself again because I spoke the name of Rumpelstiltskin. That is how the story of the ham sandwich actually finally came to an end, and it's such a convoluted mess. There is absolutely no way to tell it all without going through 50 billion episodes. There was that much that is going on. I have a digital log I was keeping. I was handwriting the logs. I have a digital log from where it was so much. It's 999 freaking pages, okay? I had to start a second log. 999 pages. I don't think that it was supposed to go that bad. At the very end, my powers were so sealed and so cut and so silenced that I was having to send mini cats on errands for me and delegate for me. There is one event that she just finds hilarious, because the coven clearly did not believe that my Loki could be a power of any kind. They were clearly offended that I was claiming to be wed to Loki. And I know that one of their member is a Loki priest. So they had put thorns around me, which is a typical tactic I now know. So they put thorns around where my Loki was lurking, and that was hilarious. I wrote a song about it, and I will add it to the end of this episode for you. But that's how bad things got. That they actually took it upon themselves to strike out at an entity that was not human, shall we say. And that entity finally lost his temper. Minicat says, Minicats can't get over it. She's always talking about when she went up to pass the message to me, and she's like, and he had these big yellow eyes, and I was about to die. We ended up having to go to Odin, who I'm supposed to have been learning under in the end, and explain, look, she's supposed to be having trials and tribulations, but this isn't trials and tribulations. This is being sucked on and dying, and he ended up sending me help. That's how bad it was. There were times that I had come to him for something, and the parasites came, and I thought they were the genuine faces of the gods, and he stood up and stood in front of me to these against, to stand with. He stood with them. He stood against them for me. I tear up a little thinking about that. I didn't understand what was going on, and Odin, of all entities in the universe, stood up and stood there and defended me. And I didn't understand it. And I was so angry at everyone, including him at the time. And I have had to do many a candle and offering of apology. And he is such a great guy. And I know that he's known for frenzy and some other activities, but my experience with him has been so wonderful. Even the time that I didn't think it was wonderful and I mistook it. He has my loyalty. I may be wed to my Loki, and I love my Loki. But if I were forced to choose between Loki and Odin, and I was forced to, you have to do your loyalty now, I would have a very hard time. Fortunately, Bridget had said to me, you may serve all of us, so I'm free of that onus. Thank goodness. I would not be able to do this if it weren't for Bridget. Thank you, Bridget. That's how bad things got, that a freaking god had to stand and shield me. But I thanks to my friend and other people and the gods and everyone that were standing for me, I finally made it through what should not have been as bad a trial as it was. I came through it doubting that gods existed. I am still kind of figuring out where I stand. In the very beginning, I was warned there would be a trial by fire, but even Odin's like, yeah, we didn't mean this much fire. It's like, yeah, you don't think this is a trial by fire? This is trial by inferno in the heart of a volcano in the middle of Mars, which is headed towards Mercury, past the corona of the sun. And through it all, would anybody listen? No. Was there anybody who would help me take the spiritual step I needed to carry on? No. Will I be like that? No. The things I got out of the journey are kind of neat. Odin had asked me to turn back time. I didn't understand what he meant at the time completely, but I now know that part of what he's asking for has to do with shamanism, has to do with the remnants of Scyther and what little bit I'm, learning. I've got spirits on my side teaching me. I've got a stack of books behind me, hoping to find a good teacher. The biggest part of what it is I am called to do out of my heart has to do with an art called pitch pulling, and it is a purification art. It has to do with balancing things perfectly, and in order to do that, I actually technically turn back time. It's a energy time to reset it to a base. So his statement was cryptic, but now I understand it a lot better. I don't know if that's what he meant. It was something I had spontaneously remembered the family being able to do and hearing about it through the journey. And I tried it on a spirit, and then I started doing it on spirits. And I don't know how much of that was parasite hijacking and how much of that was real still. I have a feeling a lot of it was real. I have pitch pulled a couple of chickens and a kitten and got to pitch pull a human long distance. I am not at a point where I would be able to say take on human clients more frequently. I really would like to. It's in my heart. It's a big calling that I really just want to pitch pull and to pull the impurities. It's called pulling sin. People think of sin as, oh, you did a bad thing, you crosswalked, what is sin? The original meaning of sin is impurity, and impurities are born from negativity, and negativities are bad deeds. That's where sin, that's where our modern concept of sin comes from. A pitch puller is the puller of sin. I remember it mentioned on the radio in somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, and when I started looking for it, because I started reviving it in my life, I discovered that no one even remembers the term anymore. And they're not even calling pitch by the proper words now. They're calling it miasma, which is the old Greek term, yes, but the problem with the term miasma is that it's got the wrong connotations. So I'm going to insist on calling it pitch pulling. I now have my Loki by my side when he's here, and he has helped me reestablish a lot of stuff as I built a little special place in the backyard that I'm calling my Vey, and I'll go do rituals and he'll guide me through them when he's here. I have gotten to meet, I don't know how many entities. I have got to see so many things. I guess I could have figured out many years ago because I've always had a foot in the grave, as I have said in other podcasts, and I've always been able to see and hear the dead and things like that to a limited degree. But then this person passed, and I put their story down in one of my blogs, so I don't really want to go into it here. If people want me to tell the story of how I walked someone across the river and taught them how to go to the next stage of life, I will be happy to. But let me just sum up that this person passed. They were afraid. They had been a great magician in their life, and yet they were afraid of the next thing, and they really wanted to be free. And it turned out that my role as pitch puller was to free them from their vices so that they could go to the next phase and walk on without the vices going with them. I kind of knew that was part of what I did, but to do it, to actually do it, and to have this person honor me with letting me do that and be my first in this lifetime. It was a very profound and amazing experience that I was unpacking for days after. So I gained that out of my shamanic awakening journey. Another thing I gained was an understanding of what's happening when you're being chewed upon by parasites and your powers are failing and your sight is failing. Shamans and shamanic forums online told me, oh, it's your soul resting. Your soul is just tired. And then I joined a shaman forum on Facebook, and the rules are don't talk about this, that, to other, because it's unethical. And I realized that this behavior is hurting people, and it certainly nearly killed me. If you're already strong spiritually and you're doing the world walking, and this is just a walk in the park for you like it was for me in the very beginning, and you find your powers failing, it is not your spirit resting. It is not your spirit getting tired. You're already somebody who can go out and lift 500 pounds in dumbbells, and the next day you can't lift them, but they were easy for you before. No, something else is going on. Something is wrong. When you're being chewed upon by parasites, it's because the parasites are taking pieces of your soul away. They do that. They eat up parts of your soul that you put out. They eat up your energy and they run off like owls with it. And then they go over there and they digest the parts they can, and then they spit out the bones somewhere. This is where soul retrieval comes in. Now, my friend Rebecca, who had been through some of this, had to have some soul retrieval, and she was believed. I went to the same shaman, desperate, and I was told what a lovely story. Another thing that I promise I will try not to be like. So another thing that I have gained out of the shaman journey was learning how to do my own soul retrieval, which is kind of easy. Okay. Because I have help, though. Not because I'm so amazing. I have amazing help. I have my Loki. Odin helped me. I had made a mistake, and he stepped up, and he taught me a lesson the other day. And it was an amazing lesson that I need to dedicate and talk about. So I've learned how to do that too now. I've learned a lot through this journey. But the most important thing that I have picked up out of this journey was the personal vow to never, if I can possibly, because I'm not going to be perfect, nobody's perfect, treat people the way I was treated. To never blow off their story the way I was blown off. There will be stories that will come that will sound even more fantastic than mine. I am not promising that I will be able to believe it always. What I am promising is that I will cast lots if I have to see if the story is believable. I will turn to my spirits and ask them, is this story believable? And if they say no, then I will need to come up with a good reply that does not blow off the person the way I was blown off, that does not call them wackadoo or trolling or any of the things that they might be doing. Because let me tell you, I was trolled by some idiots. One was not even very good at it. To let them know, my spirits have said that I cannot help you. I will endeavor very hard not to do like what happened to me when I was a child and tell them my spirits say you're evil, like happened to me when I was like all of 14. I'm just going to endeavor to restore faith in the supernatural in a way that gives people space, which was one of the reasons why I started this podcast, was so that people out there who are also experiencing the craziest shit know that they're not alone, that this crazy shit does happen. Unfortunately, people aren't going to listen to your crazy shit. This is how I survived. This is how I made it through. You can make it too. Hang in there. That's why I started the podcast. It actually feels kind of weird now that things are culminated and done. My life is all peaceful and normal now. I'm no longer getting chewed on by parasites, no longer going through emotional highs and lows. I have almost a pattern I go to now. I absolutely adore going out and doing rituals at the Fae, which I hated rituals before this began. But Loki makes it fun. I have a hang on the supernatural in a way that I used to only dream about when I was 14. I have been given so many wonderful gifts through this. And they're not gifts like a gold necklace, although that would be nice too. They're gifts in that you have these things that you can do now. You can travel through the world, and you're not a superhero, but you have the ability to do things for other people. And I have to say that there is some measure of feeling whole and fulfilled that I never had before this. It's an amazing gift. I don't recommend the hero's journey to everybody. Again, 0 stars, do not recommend. And when it comes to the event that started it, which would be when the fairy came and took me away, turns out he was stealing a part of my soul and had made me into a fairy bride. And I intend to dedicate an episode to discussing the fairy bride phenomenon and going through it, because there's a lot to unpack in that event. But the irony of the way that happened is that because he had cut my wing, because I had been injured, it pushed me from being hijacked by a parasite into the arms of genuine benevolent entities who stood by me when more parasites came. If I had never known about Mingloth, if I had never tried to help my friend years ago, even though I had failed, I would not have known where I could go to be pushed into the arms of entities that actually gave a damn. And I may not be sitting here making this podcast today. I may be stark raving mad out on the street, drooling on myself. Who knows? I might even be 6 foot under. It's Hollywood worthy what happened to me. I sit and I think about it and I glow. There's still a lot to work on. I still have a lot to learn. Now things are normal trials. Now things are normal fights. Now we carry forward. And my backyard is becoming a grove. And I have a Fae that I have to take down in a couple of weeks because of the weather. If I could put up a permanent structure, that would be nice, but it's just a tent. And it's good. This rambling episode is just basically me saying, hey, these things happen. This is how it culminated. It was just too much to unpack. There's no way I could have kept going with the story. But if you were listening to this story and are having similar troubles or basically going through the shaman awakening journey, know that you can come out the other side. For me, the clue was in the story Rumpelstiltskin. Those old fairy tales were told for reasons. They taught us things for reasons. And I'm thankful for them. They were part of our oral history. Now they're not. It's something I feel that we need to put back into our oral history. But here we are. And that was 40 minutes of just straight nothing but rambling. But then again, this is the River Shaman Ramblings podcast. And now I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to give you the song that tells you what Loki will do when you go the wrong direction and take things out in the wrong way on the awakening shaman that he's trying to help out.
Well, he bit his tongue, he played it nice. Watch those brambles twist like vice. But patience snaps when fools press on. You don't know fire till the fire's gone wrong. Yellow eyes flashing, he's done with the game. He's tired of thorns and is calling your name. And now he's torching the yard, turning roses to ash. Pompeii plain in a fiery flash. You thought you were clever, but you're learning for sure. Don't you plant no thorns at Loki's door. You pulled your tricks, you played your hand. Thought you'd bind the god, thought you'd make a stand. But the house still stands in a sea of flame, and he's laughing loud while he calls his name. Yellow eyes burning, he's done with the game. He's tired of thorns and he's calling your name. Now he's torching the yard, turning roses to ash. Pompeii plain in a fiery flash. You thought you were clever, but you're learning for sure. Don't you plant no thorns at Loki's door. A fairy tale bramble, sleeping beauty's wall, but this ain't no storybook after all. You poke the fox, you'll meet the flame, and you'll never forget that trickster's name. Those thorns. And now he's torching the yard, turning roses to ash. Pompeii plain in a fiery flash. You thought you were clever, but you're learning for sure. Don't you plant no thorns at Loki's door. Baby, I did something about the thorns, her.